Hello everybody, welcome to this week's episode of The County Seat. I'm your host, Chad Booth. We are bringing you our show today from the Utah State Capitol. Now, last year, the Senate actually produced a bill that created Prada, P-R-A-D-A. It's the Prison Relocation and Development Authority. This was an official move out of an outgrowth of a conversation that's been happening between the legislature, the Senate, the governor's office, and corrections about the feasibility and desirability of possibly moving the state penitentiary. Now, there have been a lot of complaints and criticisms about it, so they decided that they were going to do it right. After all, the ultimate interest of Prada is in the proper rehabilitation of prisoners who are incarcerated in the state correction system. To that end, Prada was born and will make a report back to the legislature this year. We will discuss what they have discovered so far, but let's bring you up to speed with a timeline of events that have taken us from where this started to where we are now.
In early March of 2013, the legislature passed Senate Bill 72, a proposal creating the Prison Relocation and Development Authority, or Prada. Their charge is to collect the necessary information about relocating the prison and bring their recommendation to the legislature and the governor. The Prada Board is made up of 11 members, an urban and rural county representative, 4 legislators, a judge, the Draper City Mayor, and individuals with expertise in real estate, employment, and rehabilitation programs. Moving the prison is obviously no small task, with a long list of factors that must be taken into account. The first question is simple: how much will it cost? On the surface, there are the associated expenditures and benefits of moving the prison out at Draper. Building costs and interest rates are both low, the current location is valuable for development, and the current facility will require extensive updates if it remains in its current location. However, the decision isn't all black and white. If the prison is relocated, the question becomes where? The location will affect 4,000 inmates, 1,900 employees, and 1,500 volunteers. Access to support services such as courts and medical care is another logistical hurdle. However, a new location could also have a positive economic impact for other parts of the state. Other pressing questions concern how to reduce recidivism and costs while still offering programs for rehabilitation. In order to better answer these questions, a request for proposal, or RFP, was sent out October 2nd to get proposals on the new prison development project. Prada later voted unanimously to pull the request and hired a consultant to help the group better understand the relationship between corrections and the counties and housing state inmates. For the county seat, I'm Don Dunwell.
Thank you, Don, for that report. We will come back to the county seat after this commercial break. We will pick up our conversation with members of Prada about what they've discovered so far, what their recommendations might be, and what the report will look like that they turn back to the legislature this year. We'll be back after this commercial break.
There's no need to travel far to find that perfect family adventure. Welcome to Utah's Nebo Loop Scenic Byway. 38 miles of winding highway through the southern end of the Wasatch Mountains. Join us in Juad County. It'll change your family forever.
Almost 45% of the oil produced in Utah, 7.8 million barrels, comes from Duchesne County. That oil feeds our state economy, provides job growth, and supports local business. Here in Duchesne County, we're working to make Utah an economic, cultural, and technological leader. Whether you're here for business or pleasure, Duchesne County will welcome you with open arms and invite you to explore all the beauty of the Uinta Mountains. Duchesne County, close enough for business, far enough to get away.
Kanab, base camp for your southern Utah adventures. You belong in Kanab.
Welcome back to the county seat. Our topic today is prison relocation. It's been a hot topic for well over a year now. Now that we have covered the timeline of events, let's start looking at the mechanics of how this is going to work. Joining us for a conversation are two members of the Prison Relocation and Development Authority, or Prada, Leland Pollock, who is commissioner from Garfield County, and Lane Summerhays, who's chairman of Prada. And the name would ring a bell for people that followed workers' comp for many, many years. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
I would like to start with just talking about how Prada is structured. Now, this isn't billed exactly like the Governor's Committee on Balanced Resources or anything like that. This is a different animal. How's that so?
Well, this was put into effect by the legislature in the last session, and it's established as a commission. Really, we have no authority to make any decisions that bind the state. It's a commission made up of some legislators, of some mayors who are involved in this process, and some county commissioners. And our charge really is to look at this relocation of the prison, whether it should happen or not happen. If so, how do you proceed and how do you make it work? And then take recommendations to the legislature and the governor, who have the authority to make those ultimate decisions.
What was the groundwork from which you started? I mean, obviously the counties, particularly the rural counties, are very concerned about contracting because many of them have made significant investments in this. You know, did that come into the picture at all in the very beginning of this?
Well, the very beginning is we kind of had to figure out what information we had we could use, and who should be involved in the overall decisions, and how you put inmates into the facilities in the future. And yes, the counties, from the very outset, the counties appear to be a player and will always be a player in this process.
Was this funded? Do you guys have a budget to work with on the commission?
We do. We do. We have a budget that allows us to get some consultants to help us. They'd anticipated perhaps hiring a full-time executive to help. We haven't needed that, and we have some secretarial help. So we have funding to do the kinds of studies that need to be done.
When this has all come together then with the consulting, you actually went out of state to find a consultant. How was the process for that? What did you go through in looking for that?
Well, it was a methodical process. You know, this, and by the way, Chairman Summerhays has done a wonderful job. It's a very complicated commission. It's a very complicated board. And let me say that the public perception has been that this is about moving the prison. It's not. It's about doing what's right for the inmates in the state of Utah. But as far as the consultant is concerned, it's like any other good commission that you bring diverse people together and you weigh out all the impacts and the implications to the prison, to the state of Utah, and then go from there.
An RFP was let to let anyone who wanted to be the consultant submit a bid. Mm-hmm. And there were 3 bids that were submitted. We reviewed those. We sat down, interviewed all 3 of them, and made a selection, which I believe was a very good selection.
Excellent. And these fellows are out of Florida originally. Is that their headquarters, or am I mixing that up with another group?
You know, I actually don't know where their headquarters are, but they are composed of people who have prison experience as wardens and executives in the prison system. They're actually doing a lot of the research that's being done in America today about how should prisons be structured for programming, for facilities, and they are the front runner, I believe, in the country in what's happening in the prison systems.
So it's safe to say this just isn't all about real estate, as some of the newspapers along the Wasatch Front would have us believe.
Well, that's absolutely why I made that statement. It's not that way at all. I mean, you look at me, I'm a rural county commissioner who's a private business owner who has interest in Garfield County, and, you know, to come to the Wasatch Front And go through this process to help the Wasatch Front is not something we do in rural Utah. We come up to the Wasatch Front and ask for help. So yeah, this committee is put together to get this right, to do it correctly and do what's best for the state of Utah.
All right, well, when we come back, we'll take a look at some of the issues that surround Prada and delve into the issues at hand. Stay with us here on the County Seat. We'll be right back in just a minute.
Almost 45% of the oil produced in Utah, 7.8 million barrels, comes from Duchesne County. That oil feeds our state economy, provides job growth, and supports local business. Here in Duchesne County, we're working to make Utah an economic, cultural, and technological leader. Whether you're here for business or pleasure, Duchesne County will welcome you with open arms and invite you to explore all the beauty of the Uinta Mountains. Duchesne County, close enough for business, far enough to get away.
There's no need to travel far to find that perfect family adventure. Welcome to Yuba Reservoir. Boating, fishing, camping, and ATV trails await your next visit. Join us in Juab County. It'll change your family forever.
Rediscover your sense of adventure. Welcome to San Juan County. Discover the past. A change of place. Utah's San Juan County, where life is elevated.
Welcome back to the County Seat. Our topic today is the Prison Relocation, or Prada, Prison Relocation and Development Authority, which is a broader name than just prison relocation. We have with us our guests here today, and let's pick up the conversation where we were. What have we learned so far since the idea of relocating the prison first came up?
Well, we've learned a lot. As I stated earlier, I mean, this is a very diverse and well-educated board. We've learned that the counties are involved in this. We've learned that we're not moving cattle, we're moving human beings, and we need to do that correctly. We've learned also that when an inmate recidivates, as far as the cost of that inmate, that's very substantial. When they go back, when we have to re-incarcerate an inmate, that's very costly. And so this board was charged with the verbiage in Senate Bill 72, but what we've found is it's a very complicated issue when you move human beings from one location to the other. So we are learning as we go. And that is why at the last board meeting, the outcome of that board meeting was to slow this process down, to slow it down, to get it right. That is why. It's a very complicated issue.
What other things have come to the ground?
Well, you know, one of the things that I've learned, is we have 2 or 3 different kinds of ways that we're housing inmates in Utah. One of them obviously is in Draper, and the focus much has been on Draper, but there are 7,700 inmates in the state. 1,700 of those are housed in county jail facilities. So that's a fairly significant percentage. And then 1,700 are housed in Gunnison. I've learned that the facilities in Draper, some of those facilities are the original facilities from 1951. They're awful. And if the prison were to stay where it is, we're as a state going to have to invest hundreds of $millions in upgrading those facilities and bringing those up to standard. Gunnison is a state-of-the-art facility. It's a facility we can be proud of and can be expanded. And so, you know, I've learned that regardless of what happens, we're going to be spending money on prisons.
I would imagine that it's probably lost on a lot of people, even along the Wasatch Front, because the population is aging, that until 1951, Highland High School was the location of the state penitentiary in Sugar House Park. And then it was growth of the city that prompted that move out to Draper, which at that point was just way out past the farming community. Are we pushing that kind of bumper again, or is there enough land there that it may still make sense to keep it there?
Well, there are 700 acres, and probably 300 of those acres are used. So from a space standpoint, the prison could stay there. If we look at that land, the other side of this is people are looking at that land and saying, should we use it for prison, or if we're going to expend all this money, should we spend it somewhere else? That land is now sitting between Utah and Salt Lake County, and is probably some of the most valuable land in the state. But if you're going to move the facility, you know, you need to take in a lot of the things that Leland talked about, but you've got employees, you've got 2,200 employees, you've got 1,300 volunteers who spend time at the prison helping those inmates to be reformed and to be able to come back into society. And you've got families that are visiting those prisoners. So I would think if the decision is to relocate the prison, we need to put it somewhere where you have a good base for the employees, where you've got volunteers that can still get to it. And one thing I learned in addition is there are a number of prisoners every day that have to go to a hospital or to the courts. And can you imagine trying to transport them from miles and miles and miles away to courts in Salt Lake or to hospital facilities? Very expensive.
So one of the conversations that came up, and this wasn't by anybody official, this was just as I was discussing Prada with somebody, they said, well, logically it should be in Richfield because it's the centermost part of the state. I might point out that the person who told me this was not from Richfield, nor from the county. You know, if they were to do a move like that, how would that impact the courts?
You know, let me answer that. In the state of Utah right now, we are regionalized. The 1,700 inmates in the counties are already regionalized. But the state is very careful to put those inmates in an area where they do have access to medical facilities. We know we can't take them all. So as far as where this goes, I don't think anybody really, as far as an area meets the criteria, that's the main thing, the criteria that Lane spoke about. But let's talk about this. The state of Utah gets a lot of things right. You know, we hammer on the state of Utah too much. It's the great state of Utah, and there's a lot of things we do right in this state. One of them is how we incarcerate our inmates. This county-state partnership is, as far as I'm concerned, unprecedented. I know of no other state in the union that does it. And the savings to the taxpayers is about $209 million already of what it would cost to build those 1,700 inmates a room to stay, basically. If you were going to take 1,700 inmates back from the counties, you'd spend $209 million. So it's a good regionalized system right now. Now, to make it work, we need to keep that partnership the way it is, because it's working. It's a model that is working. We can improve on it, but we need to keep it the way it is. The big portion of this prison should be kept probably on the Wasatch Front for the concerns that Chairman Summerhays has brought up. But we have a lot of options going into this. We can expand more out into the counties, more inmates. We can build it smaller. We have a lot of options. But the reason we do is because corrections and the legislature and the state of Utah has been doing this very well under the radar screen for many years.
There had been a change in administration out at corrections during the process of Prada. Has that changed the dialogue within the commission?
You know, I wasn't familiar with the old management of the system, but the new management of the system is very cooperative in this process and very engaged, very involved, and are at the table helping to try to solve all of these issues.
On that very same note, if it became, I mean, what would be the alternatives? You know, because it keeps coming back to if we move it along the Wasatch Front, we've got to redo it. Is there a better place to redo it? you know, there's talk about Tooele, and you've got transportation and volunteer costs. What is the checklist, I guess, is the question that I'm asking. What is the checklist of things that have to go into that decision?
You know, I don't think there, Chairman Summerhays, you can speak for yourself on this, but I don't think there's a checklist. I think there is a criteria that we have to meet as a Prada Board, and there's a lot of things to consider. And location will evolve out of this process. And one of the points I want to make in regard to that is how many inmates go to the counties. The legislature and the governor still has to decide that. So that will determine the size of this new facility, if it's even built. It may stay where it is. But what has come out of this so far as I'm concerned, is the public is getting educated on what is going on when you incarcerate an inmate. What happens?
And you know, it may not just be one facility. There are many different units down there that could be broken up, and all of them don't need the same level of security. Perimeter fences, you know, you've got a geriatric unit with people over 70. You know, you've got a women's unit, you've got a drug offender unit. In fact, you've got these different units, and you may want to break it up and do a decentralized kind of a campus, not just one major. You know, we've got Gunnison obviously, but we may break it up or recommend that it be broken up.
And we'll be back after this commercial break.
Skiing is expensive, right? Well, how about we do something about that? Eagle Point, Southern Utah's premier resort located right outside of Beaver, Utah, is proud to announce $25 lift tickets all season long. Ski and snowboard Utah's newest resort for the lowest price, and find out why the Point, with its family-friendly staff and great atmosphere, will become your second home. $25 lift passes all season. Go to EaglePointResort.com for eligibility and restrictions. 5 lifts, 40 named runs, 1,500 vertical feet. Endless possibilities. Eagle Point Resort.
Kanab, base camp for your Southern Utah adventures. You belong in Kanab.
Rediscover your sense of adventure. Welcome to San Juan County. Discover the past. A change of place. Utah's San Juan County, where life is elevated.
There's no need to travel far to find that perfect family adventure. Welcome to Yuba Reservoir. Boating, fishing, camping, and ATV trails await your next visit. Join us in Juab County. It'll change your family forever.
Welcome back to the county seat. Our topic today is prison relocation, the Prison Relocation and Development Authority, Prada. It's time to do a little bit of a wrap-up. What were some of the initial things the consultants said on their way into this? Because they've already made a couple of recommendations, as my understanding is, about the relationship between corrections and the counties. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, they initially determined that this process must slow down until such time that we can work out some kind of clarity with the counties. How many do we want to put into the counties? Do we want to put any into the counties? Does the counties want to take the inmates? So that was one of the initial recommendations coming in from the consultant, and that's basically what slowed the process now.
Well, and on that point, I think it's almost a given that the counties need to be a player in the long-term solution of our correction system. You have a fixed number of beds, and the county plays a major role in that expansion and contraction of inmates at the boundaries, but it also takes a significant number of the lesser risk inmates. Yeah, that's very helpful to the system.
And how about the programming side of counties? Does that play a role?
Well, you know, I was in a meeting earlier this morning, and it was mentioned that counties have no programming. We have programming. We do all sorts of programming. We even have inmates that are quilting and doing indexing, but they have drug programming, education, all sorts of community service type programs. So we do have programming in the counties.
You know, and some of the discussion has also been to have the counties take a higher level of security risk inmate, which would facilitate, they have to build a different kind of facility to gear up to do that. But everything that I see is that the counties are going to play maybe even an ever-increasing role in this whole system.
I think that would be safe to say, and we do have a good partner with Roland Cook, Director Cook. I need to put in a plug for him especially because he is being very patient. He's the guy on the other end of this that has to decide, can I put this inmate into a county facility or can I not do it? And he's been a very good partner. And it's going to, you know, at the end of the day, we're trying to give corrections time, be a good partner with them, and determine how many of these inmates go to the counties and at what level, and what counties can accept these inmates.
When you guys read the paper and you hear what the newspapers are saying and you know what's going on in the committee, how different is life inside versus what's being reported?
You know, I haven't seen a lot in the newspapers that I took offense with. There was a wonderful editorial after the last meeting that commended for the slowdown in the process, and they haven't been too far off, but the papers have a difficult time getting everything right. They've got a short timeline to do their stories, but I haven't been offended with what I've read in the paper.
I think the biggest thing that I've noticed is the perception. The perception is out there in the public that this is all about moving the facility, the Draper facility, and it's not. There are so many things that we have uncovered that have to be dealt with, that we're trying to deal with. That's one of the reasons this process has slowed itself down. Basically, the Prada Board didn't slow it down. It evolved and slowed itself down because it is so complicated.
Knowing that there's a lot still to be gleaned from the consultant who's out working. As a matter of fact, we had invited them to join us today, but they were out actually touring jails and they couldn't make it. So I'm glad that we're getting our money's worth out of them. But what is the report going to look like that goes back to the legislature?
Well, the deliverables that I'd like to take to the legislature is, first of all, whether or not we recommend moving the prison. But then assuming that that recommendation is moved, then what's the master plan to move it? And what's the time frame? What are the initial phases that could be funded even in the next year, which I believe is an expansion of Gunnison. And I think we can give a blueprint that will give the legislature clarity in how it should proceed with money to be appropriated this year, and then a final plan with appropriations in 2015.
It actually sounds like a pretty good like you've got your game plan together well. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for allowing us to come into your homes for this program. Be sure to tell your friends that they can watch this program online anytime they'd like, thecountyseat.tv. And we would like you to go to our County Seat Facebook page, and that's where we will start the dialogue. You're welcome to comment there, and you can even get a response from us. Thanks for joining us on the County Seat. We'll see you next time. Remember, local government is where your life happens. Stay engaged, stay involved, and stay tuned. We'll talk to you next week.